On Monday, Donald Trump ignited a fresh wave of outrage when he announced that pregnant women should limit their use of acetaminophen, one of the most widely consumed medications on the planet. Known to millions of Americans by the brand name Tylenol and referred to as paracetamol across much of the world, acetaminophen has long been regarded as the safest pain reliever available for pregnant women. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Yet Trump claimed it heightens the risk of autism when used during pregnancy, a claim that directly contradicts decades of scientific research and the overwhelming consensus of the global medical community. The former president, never one to shy away from a dramatic pronouncement, declared that he had waited for 20 years for this meeting, as if his remarks represented the culmination of a long-suppressed truth. It's not that everything's 100% understood or known, he admitted, but I think we've made a lot of strides. In presenting himself this way, Trump positioned his comments not as a wild speculation but as a revelation that health authorities had allegedly ignored. Medical experts immediately sounded alarms. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the premier U.S. body representing specialists in women's health, swiftly condemned the announcement. Irresponsible and dangerously misleading were the words chosen by its president, Dr. Stephen Fleischman. In a statement, he warned that Trump's claim is not backed by the full body of scientific evidence and dangerously simplifies the many and complex causes of neurologic challenges in children. Fleischman's warning was echoed by doctors across the country. Autism is a multifactorial condition shaped by genetics, biology, and environment. Reducing it to the result of a single over-the-counter medication is not only scientifically baseless but potentially harmful for pregnant women who may now fear taking a drug that is often essential for controlling fever or pain, conditions that, left untreated, carry genuine risks to both mother and child. To understand why Trump's words struck such a raw nerve, one must revisit the troubled history of autism in the public imagination. Autism spectrum disorder, ASD, is not a disease in the traditional sense but a complex neurological condition that affects communication, behavior, and social interaction in diverse ways. For some, it brings significant challenges, for others, it simply represents a different way of perceiving and navigating the world. Over the past 4 decades, diagnoses have risen sharply, not because autism is spreading, but because awareness, recognition, and diagnostic practices have evolved. Yet this rise has fueled deep anxieties. Parents, desperate for explanations, often look for external causes. This desperation made the public more vulnerable to myths. In the 1990s, a since-debunked study falsely linked vaccines to autism, setting off decades of fear, anti-vaccine movements, and social division. Despite overwhelming scientific evidence proving no such connection, the myth still lingers. Trump himself has previously leaned into these fears, questioning vaccine safety during his presidential campaigns. His latest pivot to acetaminophen fits the same narrative arc: find a familiar, trusted medical product and cast suspicion on it as the hidden culprit behind autism. The strategy appeals emotionally to parents searching for answers, even if it fails scientifically. Acetaminophen has been on the market for over half a century. It is often the first medication doctors recommend to pregnant women suffering from headaches, muscle pain, or fever, because alternatives like ibuprofen and aspirin carry known risks of complications during pregnancy. Research into acetaminophen's effects on pregnancy has produced some correlations worth investigating, but not definitive conclusions. A few observational studies have suggested that frequent or prolonged use of acetaminophen might be linked to higher rates of behavioral or attention-related diagnoses in children. Yet these studies face enormous challenges. They often rely on maternal recall of medication use, which can be inaccurate. They cannot fully separate whether it was the drug itself or the underlying reason for taking it, such as fever or infection, that contributed to the outcomes. Major health organizations, including the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) and the World Health Organization (WHO), have reviewed this research and concluded that acetaminophen remains safe when taken as directed during pregnancy. While they acknowledge that more research is always valuable, no authoritative body has recommended avoiding the drug altogether. Trump's sweeping claim, therefore, collapses decades of nuanced research into a blunt political statement. Trump's remarks also sparked anger among autism advocates. Organizations like the Autism Self-Advocacy Network, ASAN, argue that framing autism as the tragic byproduct of a common household medication risks both stigmatizing autistic individuals and misleading parents. Autism is not a disease to be eradicated, advocates argue, but a form of human diversity that deserves support, not fear. By reviving rhetoric about causes and cures, Trump undermines the progress made toward acceptance and inclusion. For autistic individuals themselves, the idea that their existence is linked to a supposed mistake during pregnancy can be deeply damaging. It reinforces outdated narratives that autism is something to be prevented at all costs, rather than a condition to be understood and embraced within the fabric of society. For critics, Trump's announcement was less about science than politics. Throughout his career, he has portrayed himself as the outsider willing to say what the establishment refuses to admit. Whether it was questioning vaccine schedules, doubting climate change, or promoting unproven COVID-19 treatments, Trump has consistently leveraged skepticism of expert opinion as a political tool. By claiming that they have hidden the dangers of acetaminophen for 20 years, Trump once again cast himself as the truth teller exposing corruption in elite institutions. In this narrative, pregnant women and worried parents are the victims of deception, scientists and doctors are the gatekeepers who failed them, and Trump is the courageous whistleblower. This framing resonates with his political base, many of whom already distrust government institutions. Even if the claim is untrue, it reinforces his broader message: don't trust the experts, trust me. Trump's words did not stop at U.S. borders. Within hours, headlines appeared in Europe, Asia, and Latin America, where health authorities scrambled to reassure pregnant women that acetaminophen remains safe when used responsibly. The WHO reiterated its guidance, emphasizing that no global health body has ever recommended avoiding the drug. But the damage may already be done. Once a high-profile figure like Trump amplifies a claim, it spreads rapidly through social media. Online parenting forums began filling with anxious posts: should I stop taking Tylenol? Did I already harm my baby? What else aren't they telling us? For doctors and health officials, the challenge is now twofold: to correct misinformation without amplifying it further, and to reassure patients who may be genuinely frightened. Behind the political spectacle and scientific rebuttals lies a very real human cost. Pregnant women already face enormous pressure to make perfect decisions for their unborn children. Every meal, every supplement, every lifestyle choice can feel scrutinized. Into this climate of anxiety, Trump dropped a bombshell claim that may leave women second-guessing themselves, racked with guilt over something as ordinary as taking a pain reliever for a headache. Meanwhile, autistic individuals may face renewed stigma as their condition is painted once again as a preventable tragedy. Parents of autistic children may be pressured to blame themselves, or each other, for medication decisions made during pregnancy. Trump's announcement on acetaminophen and autism illustrates the dangerous intersection of politics and public health. On one side are scientists, doctors, and advocates, armed with decades of evidence and careful nuance. On the other side is a political figure wielding a simple, emotionally charged narrative that spreads faster than scientific truth. Autism is not the product of Tylenol, and acetaminophen remains one of the safest medications available to pregnant women. Yet Trump's comments have reignited old fears, fueled new misinformation, and left countless families grappling with questions that should never have been raised in the first place. The deeper issue is not acetaminophen itself, but the erosion of trust in science and the ease with which politics can turn complex medical realities into simplistic, polarizing talking points. In that sense, the true danger lies not in the medicine bottle, but in the microphone. Trump's declaration about acetaminophen and autism highlights a dangerous collision between politics and science. Autism is not caused by Tylenol. Acetaminophen remains one of the safest medications for pregnant women. The real risk lies not in the medicine cabinet but in the microphone. When political figures spread medical misinformation, they erode trust in science, stigmatize vulnerable communities, and endanger public health. The fallout is confusion, guilt, and fear, emotions that linger long after the headlines fade. In the end, the question is not whether acetaminophen causes autism. It doesn't. The question is how much damage can be done when rhetoric drowns out reality, and whether society can rebuild the fragile trust beneath the headlines. The most vulnerable bear the cost of confusion. Imagine a pregnant woman battling high fever late at night. Her doctor has told her that acetaminophen is the safest option. But after Trump's remarks, she hesitates. Should she take the pill? Or should she endure the fever, fearing autism more than the risks of untreated illness? Imagine parents of autistic children, hearing Trump suggest that their child's condition could have been avoided if only the mother had avoided Tylenol. The blame and guilt are crushing. And imagine autistic individuals themselves, seeing their lives once again framed as a preventable mistake rather than a valid identity.